Cole, welcome to Taiwan On.
Yeah, how's it going?
Good. So
You
Cole,
guys hear me well?
yeah. So Cole, give us, before we get into the details of some of your tournament fishing and what you got going on in the future. Give us a little bit of your background in terms of how you got to where you are today with your fishing career.
Yeah. I live here in Ohio. A lot of people are kind of surprised about that. I When I was young, we always went down to Kentucky Lake. My dad, he's been in fishing. My family, they've always kind of all fished, and um, went down there a bunch. When I was a little kid, and uh, I ended up going to college down there at Bethel University, right there on Kentucky Lake, and started off, right in the college deal. Around here, high school fishing wasn't, you know, it wasn't a real big thing around here. So um, I was kind of about determined that's what I wanted to do. As a youngster, and I went there, went to college, and I always fished and I always jumped in a bunch of them BFLs down there on Kentucky Lake, the LBL division, and and I started jumping in some of the Costa series, which are now Toyotas, and
Mm-hmm.
I just kind of worked my way up from there, and now I can't really believe I'm gonna be fishing the Bass Pro Tour, so that's kind of an exciting deal for this upcoming season. I'm really excited about.
If you would, Cole, tell us about the BBT and how that invitation. How do you get to be selected to join that circuit?
Yeah, I'm excited. To be able to. That's one of the prestigious, fishing gigs going on right now. It's a new deal. All the it's a style deal. You got Ken Van Dam and all them guys. I mean, to be able to jumping in, getting thrown in the wolves. I mean, it's kind of going to be a little overwhelming. But I don't get too worked up. About um, you know that kind of stuff. Uh, I'm kind of excited to see how it's a different format than what I'm used to. That's for sure. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna have to get some used to, in that kind of format situation. I'm so used to the five fish deal, and um, hopefully I can carry it over and to that side of the format and roll with it, keep the momentum going. I had a decent season last year, and if I have a season like that again this year, it'd be pretty sweet.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, Cole, if you would tell us a little bit about your bass fishing strengths. When you're out on the water, what do you like to do? What do you consider, the things that you're best at? Talk us through that, if you would.
Yeah, when I moved down to Kentucky Lake, it I really wanted to hone in on the electronics and deep water style fishing, and living in Ohio, I've never fished much deeper than I could usually touch my rod anywhere I was at on the
Sure.
bottom, and that's how my dad kind of taught me growing up. He's a heck of a shallow water fisherman, and um, I've learned a lot from him, and um, my strengths. I've done really my track record. I've done really good in ledge tournaments and stuff, and guys look at me as kind of just a deep water ledge guy. Since I've been on Kentucky Lake, my whole life. Well, not my whole life, but for 6 years. And this year I caught a lot of fish flipping, and that's kind of one of my go tos. I love flipping, shallow water fishing, frog, and I like power fishing, and that's kind
Mm-hmm.
of my strengths. I think but I can still. You got to be versatile. That's the key. That's the key in this game. You got to be able to be able to do it all. I still got a lot of weaknesses, to work on, but yeah, I mean, shallow water fishing, springtime. I just that's some of my favorite right there, flipping and all that. So.
Sure. When you talk flipping, what kind of cover are you typically flipping in the lakes you fish? And talk a little bit, if you would, about the different kinds of baits. What are the baits that you like to flip?
Yeah, living in Kentucky Lake, I know I keep bringing it up, but I flip buckbrush, for 6 years straight. I mean, I was out there every day. I mean, flipping bushes, and when they get in them bushes, it can be awesome. I mean, you can have them magical days. Catch boats load of fish and a lot of big ones. And I don't know. I'm kind of different when it comes to flipping. When I'm in practice in a lot of tournaments, I'll flip extreme. I cover a lot of water. A lot of guys kind of shy away from it because it just takes so much time, to really get anywhere, and it does, But I love flipping a rage bug. You can't go wrong with it. Strike King rage bug. I mean, it's a phenomenal bait. I use that bait for everything: trailers, flipping, punching, the whole 9 yards. And my favorite color, it's called Moon Juice. It's just all around great color. But yeah, I mean, I love flipping grass. That's one of my, and I never grew up really flipping grass. I kind of just had to learn it on my own. And it's kind of become one of those deals. If I get around a place and I can catch some flipping grass, it seems like I can do pretty stout. So I don't know. It's something I like close quarter combat.
Sure.
A lot.
Sure. So in the North Country where I live, Cole, when we flip shallow cover, we're talking a lot of slip sinkers in that 3/8 ounce size range. You referenced the rage bug. We flip that quite a bit, of course. A jig and a rage bug, and also just flipping a Texas rig rage craw is a big deal up here. But if you would talk about sinker size, what kind of depth you're fishing. Also, maybe if you would, the details of your rod and reel selection too.
Yeah. I on weight, and I'm not real. It's funny. A lot of my buddies give me a bunch of crap. They think it's funny, but I'm real not real technical, and I like using a big weight. I like a reaction bite if I can get one. It just varies on times of year. In the spawn, something I learned from my dad. Flipping Kentucky Lake when the fish are all spawning and stuff, and it works everywhere. It works. I mean, it works all around the country, but I like using a little more heavier weight than the normal guy would, and that's just for a simple fact. It's just all reaction. When you drop your bait in that bush, they have no choice. I mean, it happens so fast, and they just react to it. But sometimes they want something slow. It's you kind of just got to feel them out. But weight size all around, just a good weight size. I love a 5/8. I'll use a half and stuff, but sometimes a 3/4. Dad loves to use a 3/4. Like he uses that a lot. But it just depends, on depth. When you get in a lot shallower water, and you might get a glass, slick, calm day. I'll try to get away with a little bit more lighter weight, and present my bait a little more quieter. But as of that, I mean, if the deeper the heavier weight, you want to get down there and get it out. I'm usually a couple hops and I'm out, moving on to the next target. And my rod setup, it's a Lose. It's Mark Rose's Lead Series swim bait rod. That's the rod I use for flipping. And a lot of people ask me, I love a 7.6. It's a 7.6. It's a medium heavy. It's not too stiff. It's not too flimsy. It's perfect. You can make good accurate flips with it. You don't really rip a. Sometimes you can use too stiff a rod, in my opinion, and it just don't work out too well for me, anyways. But I love that setup. I use the Lose Hypermag 8.3-1. I love the fast gear ratio reel. You got to have that. I've honestly almost converted to almost all 8.3-1. I love the fast gear ratio reel. And not Hypermag, it's a beast. I love the setup. I'm lucky to be able to use the equipment I do.
How about your line selection?
So and all around, if I'm flipping, for the majority, I'm usually flipping 20. I'll even go a little bit above that, and I use fluorocarbon. I usually, like I said, 20. I usually use 20, even if it's a little bit if it's even clear water, you know, if them fish are active, I want to use the biggest line I can get away with, you know, flipping. And a lot of times I don't think it personally matters. I don't think it's smart to try to use a, you know, 14, for example, 14-pound line and try to get a little more finesse on it. I like to use the big line if I can get away with it. You know, I mean, sometimes that does come into play. Though, I mean, you know, lighter line is you get more bites. You know, but for the most part, you know, flipping bite a lot of times it's just reaction. You know, right. It usually don't hit the bottom. You know, if you're a flipper, you know, I mean, when you flip in there, it's usually, they usually got it before it even hits the bottom. But yeah, I mean, line wise, 20 is all around. I love 20.
Sure. So, Cole, let's switch gears a little bit, if we would. You referenced a background in ledge fishing, and for us here in the North Country, we really don't fish ledges. When we fish deep, we fish what we call deep weed lines. If you would, for our listeners, our viewers, explain that ledge, you know, the type of cover that you're fishing in terms of the depths and what you're looking at there.
So yeah, Kentucky Lake's known for its ledge fishing. I've spent hundreds of hours behind a graph, and you know, when it comes to deep water, I'm not really big on. I'm not a real big target guy when it comes out deep. Like I don't mess a whole. I'm not a real big brush pile fisherman, and that's something I'm really weak at. When we have a tournament and you hear that dock talk, it's gonna be brush piles. I try to stick away from it, and I need to get good at it. I just don't have a lot of confidence in doing it. But ledge fishing on Kentucky Lake, current. I've come to living there for 6 years. Current is your best friend. It can make wonders, and just the way them fish position and get up there and feed on certain places. That plays a big role. If I had to tell a beginner, ledge fishing, I've definitely, you got to spend tons of time you can't replace that, time on the water, behind the grass. But, I'll look for some little sneaky stuff. That's usually what, as much pressure as these fish are getting nowadays, a lot more people are fishing. And, I try to look for a lot more steep. And people ask me, what are you looking for? And the thing is, it's almost like I'm not even looking for. I'll just look off the grid, where there's not many contours, and I'll just put my side scan on and roll with it, and try to really zoom out on a map and look what makes sense, with the current. And it's kind of one of those deals you kind of just got to figure it out as you go. But channel turns, points, all that good stuff. That's always been a big player in ledge fishing. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of one of my deals. But I'll go to a tournament and these guys they might go out on a day and find 20 schools, for example, and I might find one or two, but it might be the right one or two that's never seen a bait,
right.
But it's a grind. I mean, it's not easy, but that's one of my little tricks I've used for a long time.
Sure. So when it comes to actually catching those fish, how deep typically are they holding, and how do you go about catching them?
So I like to target a little bit more shallower stuff than what normal guys do. I like to find on the Tennessee River, Pickwick, Chick, Kentucky Lake. I love to find that. I like that range when it's about 9 to 12, 13 foot. I know it sounds shallow for scanning, and it is. It's hard to see the fish in that depth, but it seems like them fish are they don't have near the pressure as them ones out where you can really see them real easy. And side scan is your best friend when it comes to that. I don't use down imaging a whole lot, but yeah, I mean, that's something I've always, depth-wise, I've always tried to, even late in the summer, when a lot of them fish, I mean, a lot of people always claim that, they go deep as they can right off the bat out of the spawn, and I'm sure they do, a lot of guys catch them like that, but there's still a lot of fish that stage, they'll get in that they'll stop at that, 9, 10, 11 foot range first.
Mm-hmm.
And I've caught them, they'll be bloody tail. I mean, and they'll be May, they'll be just,
Yep.
they're just them late spawners, that guys think they're all done. And, and that's it. For example, in Pickwick, we, me and my buddy Carter, in college, we won back-to-back national championships there in Pickwick. And most of the fish we're catching, they were bloody tailed, they were just getting done as some big late spawners. And they were only, like in 9, 10 foot. So, that's something I target a lot. I don't really mess with the real deep stuff.
Sure. How are you catching them in those depths then?
So, usually if I find a school, in that depth, I mean, you can't go wrong with a Strike King, 5XD or a 6XD. I like my bait to really grind. You don't want something too deep, but 5XD or 6. I love a 6XD. It's my all around go to cranking bait. And there's a color called apple shad. That's one of my. I love that color. It's got some purple on it, some lime green. It's just an awesome color. Something that they don't see a whole lot, and I think that makes a big difference. But I'll tell you one thing that has always been key to my crank. I love cranking. It's one of my favorite things to do when they're on the ledges, and that's using a high speed gear ratio reel. I usually use a 7 gear ratio reel and 731, and I like burning it. I'll reel as fast as I can through them schools, and it's the same thing going back to flip. It's just a reaction bite, and that's something, that's what I'm kind of looking for, is get them to react and get that school to fire. Then when they settle down, I like throwing a big jig in there. That's kind of one of my go-tos after they kind of slow down. But yeah, I kind of like going. I like using big baits. I like getting after them. I'm not a real big drop shot guy, but I will have to pull it out, every once in a while. But
right.
That's the kind of schools I look for. The ones that will eat them crankbaits. Them are the right kind.
Right, exactly. So, Cole, let's switch gears one more time here, and then we'll let you go. Let's talk a little bit about this Bass Pro Tour that you have accepted an invitation to fish now. So for our listeners and our viewers, the Bass Pro Tour kind of morphed out of Major League Fishing. It is one of the highest levels in fishing right now. In fact, in the Major League Series, it is. How many tournaments will you guys fish next year? And, describe, if you would, to our listeners a little bit that format where you're not fishing for a limit per se, but you're fishing for a whole bunch of fish.
Yeah, all you listeners probably gonna laugh. I don't even know exactly the amount of tournaments I fish. I'm gonna fish both tours. I'm gonna fish the Tackle Warehouse and the Bass Pro Tour. All I know is I'm not sure the exact number how many tournaments I got a bunch, between them two. So I'm gonna be extremely busy. The change is going to be interesting. I hope I can adjust to that, that different format. I've kind of been, and I think about it every once in a while. I'm really good sometimes when it's pretty tough, and I can get on a bite and just grind out, 6 to 10 bites per se, and this year, I've had a couple tournaments that's how it was. I wasn't getting many bites, but when I did, it was a big one. You just had to capitalize. And, I'm going to have to, that's just not going to cut it over there with them boys. I mean, you're able to catch 5 big ones, but that's not going to cut, cheese. So it's, it's definitely going to be a, different pace in the game. I'm kind of excited though for it. I really think it makes you a better fisherman. It's a cool format. I've actually messed around and fished. Well, I fished a college event that had that format, and I'll tell you what, it was a whole different ball game, and it was really high. It's really high pace, and I fished that deal and last year in the championship and the pro circuit, and it was that format, and it'll get to your head for sure. Listen to everyone, how, you feel like you have no clue what you're doing at times. And it's funny how it's like that. But it's going to be interesting. I'm excited just to be able to, fish against them guys, and really try to get the ball rolling. I hope I have a good season again, this coming year, and I'm looking forward to it for sure.
Sure. So last question, Cole, and then we'll let you go here shortly. You guys are coming to Mille Lake in September of next year. I guess actually 2 questions for you. Have you ever fished here in the North Country, and what are your impressions as far as what do you expect when you come to Mille?
Oh man, I've heard a lot about that place. In Minnesota in general. I went up there, back a few years ago in college, and I went to a lake called Bemidji, and we ended up getting second in that deal. But I love it up there. Them fish are built completely different. I mean, I love northern fish. But yeah, Mille, it's going to be interesting. I've never been there. It's a big body of water. Kind of going out of the blue, I know smallmouths, that's the deal there. I might even, with that format, maybe look into, some largemouth fishing too. I know it might sound crazy, but, I might get in an area, might be able to catch a bunch, just solid ones and stay in the game. But, I'm probably going to go out there and have to mess with a smallmouth. But, my smallmouth history hasn't been that good, in the past. And, it's something I need to work on. But I tell you what, them largemouth though, I hope they come to play a little bit on some of these tournaments.
Sure.
For the smallmouth guys. But I mean, for example, they just had that deal up there at Lake St. Clair, and heck, some of them boys, they rocked them in that river, the largemouth, and
sure.
I figured it probably wouldn't hold up, but they did dang good doing it. But
right,
yeah, it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be an interesting season. I like the schedule.
Sure.
It's an interesting schedule. So.
Right. Well, and I said I was going to let you go after this last question, but you referenced the tournament you fished on Lake Bemidji. Tell us a little bit about that tournament. I remember that was, I believe you guys were running rivers there to get to some of those kind of backwater places, if I remember right. Talk about that, if you would, a little bit.
Yeah. Me and my buddy Carter, we had a terrible practice, in that event, and we're just getting bites here and there, and everyone went to that stump lake. That's where everyone, I think, I'm gonna say, I think like 90% of the field went in there, and it was just a miracle go around. I mean, everyone just going in circles, and there's tons of fish in there. It was really good. It's just the pressure really got to them. In them couple days. I mean, it didn't take long at all for them fish to really kind of go lock down on them. But I tell you what, the first day we had 4 fish, and we were in that stump lake, and I told my buddy, I was like, we need to leave. We need to go somewhere else. And I went probably a mile from where we took off at, under like a causeway, a bridge, and there's reeds on both sides. And we went there and we caught 3 big ones, and we called out a couple and weighed in. So the next day we started there, and we ended up finishing second right there in a 100-yard stretch, right there a mile away from takeoff. And we were flipping, we're flipping pencil reeds and all that, and it was a blast. I was right at Milo. We got to use heavy braid and really got to swarp on some. But, that little adjustment, you just got to trust your gut, in those situations. If we would have never made that move, and we never practiced there, in practice. So that's a big thing. You got to trust yourself, and if you can't trust yourself, it can make it really confusing.
Yeah, you're probably in the wrong line of work if you can't trust yourself.
Right, correct.
Yep. Well, and I chuckled when you said you got some big ones flipping pencil reeds, because that's kind of a mainstay thing that we do here in Minnesota. Is if you can find the right pencil reeds and you can get on a flipping bite, that's about as much fun fishing as you can have, at least in my opinion.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So, all right, Cole. Well, we thank you very, very much for your time today. and joining us here on our Tide One on Video podcast series. And best of luck to you in your career as you move forward. And we'll try to catch up with you next year, and maybe we can get an update on how things are going. But again, thank you very much for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us today.
Oh yeah, no problem. I enjoyed being on here. I appreciate you guys. Look forward to getting back on here again.
Sounds good. All right. Thanks, Cole.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You bet. So, folks, that was Cole Floyd. Cole is a young professional bass tour pro now. He's accepted an invitation to fish the Bass Pro Tour next year. Cole started, as he referenced, in the college angling series. Interesting to hear how fishing kind of is regionalized, but it's not so regionalized, because here's a guy who spent his career, his formative years in Ohio, and he comes to Minnesota, and he just about wins a tournament flipping pencil reeds, which is about as old school pattern as there is for up here in the North Country, and it's still one that wins tournaments every year. So interesting perspective, and interesting to hear his story there.